Good morning. It's Norma Cowie. It's 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. And this morning, I am going to talk about soulmates. A lot of people think and say to me, I'm with my soulmate. And as always, maybe I get panicky or something when I start these because all of a sudden I can talk regular and then my throat decides to crunch up. Drives me insane. But anyway, good morning. I'm going to start again because sometimes the first part doesn't come through anyway. So we'll see what happens. Soulmates. Are you with your soulmate? Do you want a soulmate? Have you had a soulmate? Soulmates are usually something where people think they just have a really great relationship, and that is not always true. Some relationships definitely easy move. It's like you know each other, it's like smooth. Others are a little more fractious. And what a lot of people forget is why they are actually a soulmate is because you've had other lifetimes with them. And that's why you recognize them when you first meet them. My story is when in New Zealand, when I first saw my first husband, and we were together for nearly 25 years. He walked in the door, did not know he was a Canadian. I just knew I was going to marry him. That was it. That's my man kind of thing. Of course, then you have to get to know them and, kind of start your relationship with them. There was some other information that had come in also that ended up being true. And then we came to Canada and raised our two kids. And as I said, unfortunately, after 24 years, we split up. But yes, that was a sad day, that one. But we worked together a lot. And I learned a lot about soulmates just through all the different consultations I've done over the years. People's relationships, how they enter, how they come, where do you rub together or where do you whether it's smooth out? Very often ends up a contest of wills. Sometimes it's a matter of just really learning how to support each other in the direction that you're going in. But I hear that all the time, I'm waiting for my soulmate, or I found my soulmate, but then when they find their soulmate, so often they cannot believe it when they begin to have difficulties. And that's because as humans, we grow and change. When I was 18 and met my first husband, was nothing like I ended up being, say, when I was 40. So there's a whole lot of different elements that you grow into and you explore and you come together in a different way. And if you're supporting each other and if you're willing to be open, then it's brilliant. And I've run into couples that have been together for mega years, and there's this beautiful love between them, acceptance of who they are. It's like, they call about a hot knife going through butter. Like, it's so smooth. But unfortunately, that's not always the majority. Sometimes in the beginning, it feels like it. And I've heard that. And then all of a sudden, those problems start up. But I want to talk a little bit about past lives as well today. The majority of us have any kind of an awareness at all. In other words, about personal growth, about how the universe kind of comes together and works, if you want to call it God. I usually refer things to the love force because it's very real for me. And so it's always that, like, how does that come together? And you meet people and you recognize them, or you know them, or you've seen them. Not always are they going to be a tight relationship, but they are someone that you recognize. They are somebody that you are aware of. But it is those relationships that bring about such an interesting aspect to your life. When you see them, you recognize them, you know them, or you know where the relationship's going to go. as I did in the beginning anyway. The thing is, do you want to have or find a soulmate relationship? Everyone thinks that, or really just about everybody I ever talked to that's looking for one thinks that it's nirvana. Everything will work. But you're dealing with two personalities. You're dealing with two people that have history, because I have not met a soulmate experience where they haven't had lifetimes together. And in lifetimes, they won't be always together. They will have had other lifetimes that are separate and apart. And then how does that come together in this lifetime, here and now? You might have had a great lifetime back in Roman times, for instance, or during some other time. And now, because of the time changes that have gone on in different lifetimes you've experienced, you recognize each other. You recognize that essence of the soul. But when it comes to have to work together or make do with the differences that you have, it is not always as easy. It just is not. And that's where I think the sad part is, because we have this idealistic viewpoint of how a soulmate relationship should work, rather than how any relationship is going to work. No matter who the two people are, when you come together, you bring together your experience of who you are, where you've been, what you've done, what you believe. And the basic belief system I find is really the most important when it comes to people being able to get along really, really well. If you do not have a basic principle about life, or come to terms with that, then there's usually some discomfort. I'll call it discomfort. Could be argumentative as well. What is the spiritual nature? What do you believe? How do you handle different belief systems? Many people from two different religious backgrounds get together. They have to figure that out. They have to figure out how all that works. And it's really only with diplomacy and awareness and strength and love in each other that you can do that easily, without too much, what would we say? Like feeling that you're giving up your power, or you've given up something that's really, really important to you, and that you don't really want to give that up. But how that works. And of course, that doesn't have to be in a soulmate relationship. That can be in any relationship. Any relationship that comes together has to work out the parameters of how that's going to work. And then things change. My first husband and I got along super well for years and years and years. We worked together. We were two kids, really having kids. From two very different worlds. My husband was basically raised by a single mother who had several relationships, and even though the stepfather the kid's father that became my kid's grandfather was a really great man and very enjoyable, my husband didn't experience that early. And he had a lot of things to work out. He's no longer with us on this planet now. So it doesn't matter who he is or what. I loved him amazingly, even right to the end, because he changed. And there was a period he changed, and I had difficulty living with the change. And that sometimes happens. When you grow, like I was, into all sorts of spiritual awareness and wanting things to be fairly easy, and then someone has a very, very difficult time. Perhaps I just wasn't mature enough either to be able to deal and cope with his issues when I was trying to rearrange my world in lots of ways. There's never a blame. It's just a matter of how things work, and our society makes it fairly easy for us when we're not really happy with things to be able to move on. Which at the time I was very happy to, because it made my life easier. But that is the essence of what you're doing and how relationships work today. I have I was going to thinking about moving and changing. I've spent most of my life down at the coast. And then, 2007, I moved up here into the interior. And so a lot of my friends, even though I kept in contact for a certain length of time, I didn't really see them. The beginning, I went back to the coast a lot. Then as the years ticked by and I became older, I've gone back less. And then the last 2 years, I haven't gone back at all because I haven't been well enough to even drive or be there. So therefore, there's a whole lot of elements in relationships. And who do you meet? I found very often a lot of people meet these wonderful relationships in their, you might say, golden years, in their older years. And that is the ability of being open to difference and being able to communicate. Excuse me. Communication, no matter when you meet someone, fall in love, and then you feel that's my soulmate, that's it forever. Always get into surprise when things begin to get a little unsettled. I always knew that you just had to work things through. That's how I was raised. So it's like hanging in there and figuring out where everything comes together and how do you compromise and what are you willing to compromise and how, but not everybody's willing. Not everybody knows or has learned how to work together as a group. Same thing if you have a workforce, never mind marriage, but you're working with a group of people. Maybe you're on an hourly fee, maybe you're on a salary, maybe whatever. You still have to work with those people. And the personalities of where they're coming from is going to play a part. Some people are more fractious than others. Some people are very tolerant. Some people always want to be right. Being right, it can be an issue sometimes in many, many cases. Some people just are very quiet and don't share or don't say or don't tell. And that's where a lot of the issues. So let's take a look. So that's kind of the day-to-day. But let's look at the soul. When your soul comes to this earth, because most souls have come from somewhere else at some point, people like myself have been on this earth for a long, long time. Others, not so much. And so it's like when you come here, there's a lot about getting used to being on this planet. As I've spoken many times, that this is, as far as I'm concerned, is an emotional planet. And the majority of souls that arrive come from very mental planets. So they have an adjustment to make. And sometimes that can take many lifetimes to get adjusted to these feelings that we have that are not rational sometimes and don't always make sense. So there's a tremendous amount that goes on in relationships through space and time. If we look back in our history, we did not live very long as people compared to today. The very, very few people lived over 40 or 45. 50 would have been getting old, really old, because just of circumstances, lifestyle, the food, etc., and the type and war, like the fighting that went on. Now, sometimes people had a very quiet life. I've been fortunate. I've done mega past life regressions on myself with myself. Once I learned about them, I did a lot to figure out who I was. Excuse me a second here. And what I found out was both as a female and a male, you're not just always one, even though sometimes there's a preference for one. I find that people generally move around a little bit. So they'll have female lives, they'll have male lives, and then they'll learn and just, but it's, I don't know, coming to my mind, and I don't know why it was somebody watching right now. I'm getting a real influx of life in England way back when we were just had, they were very structured. And unless you were born in the upper echelons, Your life was very hard. You worked for somebody and you got a bit of food and you made the best you can to do. A lot of people didn't move very far. They kind of were born in a village or a community, and they kind of stayed in that community unless you were of a different class. And that's why to this day, England and some of the other countries have a very big class system. You're born here or there or there. And I've had several lives, probably a lot of lives I had in England where I learned a great deal of things. But then I've also had other lives where I was like, what do you call it? Just a nomadic person living with sheepskins and stuff like that, and just no real home. I've had some very interesting experiences with before we made canoes, just using a log on a river to go down, and here you are in furs, and then you fall off the log, and hopefully you don't drown. I'm sorry for laughing, but I can remember some of my experiences were unbelievable. And yet at other times, I also found that people gravitated together to create communities. It's as though we also knew that we weren't loners, that we needed other people to talk to experience with, to have children with. There was those times as we grew and became aware. And then some of us, like myself, it's like the people, I've had people come up to me and say, "You're an old soul, aren't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I've been around a long time." It's like a lot of people don't stay here. They get out. But the majority of us, that's why our population seems to grow and grow and grow, is that we kind of don't know how to get out, or we don't know how to leave because we're attached emotionally here. Because when you understand how emotions work, then it becomes even more. And so we work emotionally. And that's why, and I'm going to go revert back to the soulmates, when you see somebody that you know, I'm sorry, but I'm chuckling because there was a time when I did a lot of psychic work in psychic fairs and things. And quite often I'd have in order to accommodate people, I would sit there and people would give a small amount of money, which was kind of nice. And I would look in their eyes and I would tell them. And every now and again, they'd ask me a question. It's very something like we do on Monday night, mental mind treatments, but not quite the same. They would ask me a question or something they want to know. And I tell them, and occasionally I would freak somebody out because I'd look at them and say, "Oh, I remember you." And I would recite some time that we had been together. Or I would say, "Oh, you came with a group of 3 people in the spaceship, and that's why you're still looking for somebody, because you've got, the soul's it's a lot of people on this planet, and got away." And that actually happened not too long ago, where this gal was having a reading with me. And I said, "You're always looking, you're looking and looking." And that's because when you came, there were 3 of you. That's why I'm remembering the 3. And you're still looking for them because they're not here. Like, they're here, but they're who knows where. The souls have gone on. They've changed. Who knows where they are now. And I said, just don't keep looking. Like, where are they? Where are they? They're here somewhere. And you may run across them again and you may not. The soul element is, I think, very, very important for people. And I don't always say this, but it's what I've seen, is that some people come in huge numbers, and there's been some movies made that I really liked quite a number of years ago, maybe 25, maybe even 30 years ago, and then there was a couple movies talking about what to do with the people when they arrived and how they're processed. And I've always maintained that when people arrive here, they really need to be schooled that this is an emotional planet, because most people have no idea what that means. And that's why it takes them a long time to get used to living here, number one. Number two is that I think that people need to be aware of why they're here. Sometimes people are sent here. Some people come just because they're curious, like they're flitting around the universe looking at different things, and they end up here. And it's not hard to get out of here because of the emotionality, because it's like the book. The odd person does, I think. I mean, I have to say that I'm sure they come in and they kind of just say, this is not for me. And soul wise, they take off again. Plus, we also have other beings from other planets and other things around, sometimes interfering as well. So it's like, but most of us humans, we'll say human people like myself who've been around a long time, understand that of how emotions work, even though it can overtake us at times too, when grief happens and things like that. I mean, that's only natural. That's that. But there's a lot of people that still want to be intellectual and don't listen or really get how the emotions work, which is why sometimes I talk about those a lot. But today I want you just to sort of wrap us up, and because I don't know if I'm doing a great job on this, but you can find a soulmate, but doesn't mean it's the only one. Because most of us that are here that are into any kind of growth, evolution, or awareness, spiritual connection, etc., have been around for a while. Because it's like to come into the vibration that's actually going on here. You come from another planet or even another space, because there are spaces that are on a planet. It's just a space, and I've run into those. And it's like when you get here, you've got a body to deal with, a body that feels, a planet that feels, that wants to support you. Lots of things happening because people think they know how the planet should be rather than how it is. So we got a lot to deal with. And then we meet a person, and it's like we can fall in love on sight, like I did, or you can build up in a relationship. That I did with my second husband, but that didn't last either. But it's because we weren't as soul connected at all, really. Appreciated each other at some point at the beginning, but as it went on, it didn't work that way, unfortunately. But those experiences helped me help others when they're in issues, because I learned how things worked. And plus, I got to see a lot of lives as a reader. As a reader, I got to see where people get really uptight that things are supposed to be that way. And I just found myself recently, I forget, maybe it was on one of my Sunday thoughts, talking about the need of some people to be right. You will not work a relationship well if you have a great need to be right, because there's no room to listen or to understand anything else. And usually the rightness comes from inferiority and fear. So it's kind of like we want a soulmate experience. If you want that, I've had it, it's great. Is to know there is a coming together. And sometimes some calls come together like old friends. I have some friends that we have known each other in other times, and we're there for each other when we need to be. And it's an amazing thing, because we experienced similar things and we walk a similar path in this life. Not the same, but similar. And so there's an appreciation of the growth and the progress and the experiences that you go through. Life is for living. There is no doubt about that. And the other thing is, because this is an emotional planet, and the majority of planets out there are not the same as here, at least not the ones I've gone and seen. And I've seen a lot of planets. I've seen a lot of different spaces. I have seen miracle things, and I've watched people evolve from when they first sprang into being in this whole big universe, when the soul comes. And I talked a little bit about that, and I will talk about it another day. And it's like, and some souls arrive so alive and so ready for the world. And others come and it's kind of like, oh yeah, where am I here? I don't know what this is about. And so they take a little longer to figure out what this whole world is about. How the feelings in the world, doesn't matter what continent you're on, it will have a feeling to it. I've been able to travel to different places, and breathing just into the earth, you get a different feel. And when you realize some of the religions that have come out of those spaces, that you begin to realize how come, because the it's almost like in the soil, in the density of the earth, it's where it's at, the feeling level. Anyway, I'm beginning to go all over the place, but what I wanted to convey today was really, are you with a soulmate? And do you want or to find one? If you want to find one, just put it out there. It's like anything, creating something. I want to find my soulmate. Some people are disappointed. Some people just absolutely, that's it. They come together and it's great. And it's evolution too. Like, I was young when I found my quote soulmate. He came to find me. He was actually in Australia, and I was predicted to him. They described me apparently absolutely perfectly. But as I said, he walked in a door and I looked at him and I knew that was my man, so to speak. Then we had to kind of get together and figure that out. But anyway, life is for those of us that are adventurous. Life is there for us, what we want to experience. Most important is your own experience with your own divinity of what you're wanting to do, to experience the love vibration that is there, so that you can share that with others in many different ways. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for being there, and for your thumbs up, for your comments. I just love the comments that come in. And also those of you that subscribe, I want to thank you very, very much. Trust that you just get an awakening of a new idea or a new thought or anything else. Just wish you well. I'll be back on Sunday. Bye now.